want Baby Yoda sticker or Baby Shark sticker? Oh. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Baby Yoda. Good choice, good choice. You're doing so good. 50% of my life on peds, just giving kids stickers. All right, time to talk about this rotation. So much coughing, so much crying, and mystery rashes. All of them described as maculopapular. I'm gonna give myself the Baby Shark one. I earned it. I won't lie, this is the rotation that I dreaded the most because screaming, sticky children make me want to die inside. But I'm here, I survived. And even though I was dreading it, and I'll talk more about how it actually went, but it wasn't all like bad and boogers. So let's just get into it. Just like the other previous videos I've done about rotations, this video is to give people who are either interested in peds or doing the rotation soon, or who are just curious, a quick summary of what to expect on a pediatrics rotation. So this video will include kind of a list of the things that I got to do or see, how my expectations for the schedule and content of the rotation matched up to reality, what it was actually like, and a kind of breakdown of the types of people or the personalities that I found myself interacting with on this rotation compared to like the stereotypes. And then at the end, there's going to be some, miscellaneous thoughts, including how I studied for the shelf. That's important stuff. So stick around for the end. Starting with environment. Okay, so every week you're doing something different. My first week was inpatient days. So I'm in the hospital, day shift, inpatient peds floors. Second week, I was on inpatient nights. Well, it was more like evenings though. We really didn't have like a full overnight thing. It was 4 to 11 p.m. The next week, there are different specialties and they randomize you to your specialties. I got 1 week subspecialty endocrinology and 1 week of pediatric pulmonology. I also had 1 week of like the hospital-based resident run outpatient clinic, 1 week of the newborn service, and 1 week in a private office. So stuff that I actually got to do or see, not very procedural, not super hands-on, unfortunately. Most of what my job was as a med student was to distract the kids. I do physical exams, of course, but like a lot of times I was keeping them entertained and figuring out like how to manage them so that they didn't cry or get super scared, because obviously being in a doctor's office is scary for kiddos. I'm basically like giving out stickers and making them laugh and using my very extensive babysitting experience as the oldest of 6 kids to keep the kids from crying as much as possible, basically. Now, as far as what I got to see, I actually saw quite a broad range of pathology. While I went through the rotation, I just wrote down things that I saw and kind of condensed the list later on. So I through this list and kind of explain maybe a little bit as I go. So hypospadias was one that I saw a couple of times. It's in male babies where the urethral opening is not at the tip of the penis, it is somewhere else. Unfortunately, I saw a patient who had shaken baby syndrome, and it was a pretty clear-cut, pretty bad case. We're talking like the subdural hematomas, the retinal hemorrhages, retinoschisis, bulging fontanelle, skeletal survey, posterior rib fractures, the whole 9 yards. It was pretty bad, but it's important to see because it is more common than you would expect. Also saw a sad/interesting case of first cousin parents who had a child, and that child ended up having a couple of genetic diseases that both parents were carriers for. Maybe because they were related so closely. So that is sad. Also, eosinophilic esophagitis. Something we learned about in school, and I was like, this is super rare, but we actually came across it. It was you can't even like swallow liquids, right? So this kid was just, everything was coming up. They couldn't keep anything down. Finally figure out, you get biopsy and you see all the eosinophils, boom, eosinophilic esophagitis. Also saw POTS syndrome, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, MALS, median arcuate ligament syndrome, quadriplegic cerebral palsy, and the same patient had hydrocephalus with a VP shunt, a ventricular peritoneal shunt to help drain cerebrospinal fluid. Saw some classic molluscum contagiosum, pretty severe, like severe scoliosis. And we actually had a patient who had autism and had Bezors. I'll pull up a picture of these. This is crazy. They had been, eating non-food items, and those items can build up in your digestive tract. They don't get dissolved, they stick together, and then they become like this mass that obstructs. Rumination syndrome, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, Tylenol overdose, unfortunately, Bardet-Biedl syndrome, and there's this cute kid, 2 months old, and they're having failure to thrive because they were allergic to literally everything. The team that was working with this patient and their parents was trying to figure out if it was maybe like one of those super rare autoimmune disorders such as Omen syndrome or IPEX. Yeah, that was wild. Also saw Noonan syndrome, one of those genetic disorders. Classic case of Turner syndrome as well. Central precocious puberty, Addison's disease, more POTS, amplified musculoskeletal pain syndrome. Then you have a lot of like adenotonsillar hypertrophy, every type of like upper respiratory infection and rash that you can think of. Definitely saw, those are like the really common things too. PCOS, achondroplasia, tongue ties where they had to get clipped when they were babies on newborn service. Saw lots of happy newborns, saw some plagiocephaly as well where they had little helmet head kids. Saw HIE, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy in a kiddo, that was sad. They had an artificial nose and a tracheostomy because of bronchopulmonary dysplasia. They were born super premature and had to rely on oxygen therapy, led to bronchopulmonary dysplasia, and then they have to be kind of long-term trached and have this artificial nose, and I did not know that that was a thing, and it was really interesting to see, but they're doing better now, so that's good. Moving on to expectations versus reality for the content of the rotation itself, as far as like, you know, studying wise and what I came across. A lot of the internal medicine stuff crossed over, which was nice. There are some things that apply to pretty much everybody, adult or kid, but there are definitely a ton of things to study that are very PED specific. Newborn exams, immunization schedules, differentiating all of those rashes and upper respiratory infections and stomach bugs that are much more common in kids. I swear they all sound the same and it's so hard to it took me like to the last week of the rotation to like really get that kind of stuff down. And then last but definitely least, and the bane of my entire existence on this rotation, developmental milestones. I hate them forever and ever. Forever and ever I hate milestones. Now, as for the schedule, I chose to do this rotation last of the big three: first I had surgery, then IM, then peds. And I'd heard that peds was the lightest. Even though I expected that, it was even a little bit lighter than expected, which was nice. I mean, hours definitely varied a lot from week to week, but inpatient days, so my very first week was the most time intensive. I get there about 6:45, be there till about 3 or 4. And then, like I said before, the week of evenings, that was 4 to 11-ish, so, you know, and sometimes we'd go a little bit early, so it wasn't that bad. The specialty clinics, endocrinology and pulmonology, were really chill. Half days, pretty much the entire week on outpatient clinic. Then the week of private office, I mean, it was just like regular office hours, so it wasn't bad. Newborn was 8 to 1 or 2-ish, and I'm really happy with how relatively scaled back these hours were compared to IM or surgery, because I had more time to ramp up step 2 CK studying, and I'll talk more about that later. Now for the types of people, the personalities. I'd heard that PEDS people have a reputation for being nice to your face and not so nice not to your face. I don't know why that reputation came about. I don't know where it came from. I did not run into that. I thought everyone was really nice and cool who I worked with. I feel like they were definitely quirkier than expected. And the dark humor that I experienced as like a part of normal IM and surgery culture, almost non-existent. Not so much of that kind of dark humor there. And I noticed that their patient-facing mode or like code switching was definitely more apparent compared to other rotations I've been on. I feel like that's normal in PEDS because you really do have to just talk differently around kids sometimes. You have a bedside manner and then you leave the bedside and you go talk to your colleagues. It's just the different people that you're talking to, you're gonna code switch. That's just how it is. But that just was more apparent, I felt like, in PEDS compared to other rotations. Now, contrary to popular belief, PEDS residents do not always have stickers on their faces. Those stickers are in their pockets or on their tiny mini stethoscopes or on their badges. Okay, let's move into how I studied for the shelf exam. Honestly, this is the one that I was the least stressed for. I don't plan on going into PEDS. I don't know if it's obvious, but like PEDS is not my gig. It's just not. So I wasn't looking to like ace this shelf. I just wanted to pass it, honestly. So I kept it really bare bones. If you've watched my previous videos, this will sound familiar. I did the Zonky, you know, the onking, step 2 deck, PEDS tagged cards. I did 10 new ones a day. And then I did 20 UWorld questions a day. Now, that being said, the huge bummer of this rotation, like I was mentioning earlier, because it has a lighter schedule, I use it to ramp up my step 2 CK studying. So I was not only studying for the shelf, but also for step 2. I was trying to use PEDS as a intro to dedicated step 2 study time because I took step 2 weeks after PEDS rotation ended. So I needed to use the time wisely. I needed to review a lot from the other rotations and keep up on top of old material in order to be on track and feel comfortable taking step 2 when I wanted to take it. And I'll do a whole separate video on step 2 studying and the whole experience and everything like that. So I'm not gonna do a deep dive into that right now. But for the PEDS shelf specifically, I did not do online med ed or like M Holiday videos or really any other major third-party things, not Divine Interventions podcast, nothing like that. I've really just stuck to UWorld and my Anki. And it went just fine. So a couple of things to look out for. In about 2 weeks from now, I'm gonna put out my comprehensive step 2 video, you know, what it was like, because in a couple of weeks from when this video will be posted, I'll have my score back and I'll be able to reflect back on, okay, you know, how did my actual studying work out for reals? What worked, what didn't, how did everything actually turn out, the resources I use, and if there's anything I do differently going back. And then after that will come my next rotation recap video, because I'm currently, you know, in a new rotation now, integrative medicine. And it's awesome. And if you're like, oh, what the heck is integrative medicine? It's okay, you're not alone. It's not a common rotation. And I'll tell you all about it in the video that'll come out about it, another, you know, rotation recap in about a month or so. And if you like this video, please let me know in the comments that you did. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, share it with your medically inclined friends and family. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.